Hello, friends, and welcome back to Scattered Thoughts, a mini cast where we talk about whatever in the world of magic we feel like talking about. My name is Timothy Zaccanino. I'm going to be your host for Scattered Thoughts today. And today we're going to take a step back from the rules and the formats and the cards and stuff like that and talk about something that really hits home for a lot of us here where I play Magic in Charlotte, North Carolina. If you are not a local Charlotte player, this episode might not have the same impact or meaning to you that it does to myself, my friends, my local community. But just to kind of get into the gist of what we're talking about here, we lost a community member at the beginning of September, not even a full month ago at the time of recording. We lost a good friend, an LGS owner, a pillar of the Magic community in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mr. Leon Fortner, who is the owner of Get Some Game in Charlotte, which is the LGS that I spend most of my free time at. It's where I've spent probably the last 7 or 8 years of my life at whenever I get free time to go out and play Magic, and he was the owner. This is not the time nor place to talk about the circumstances of his death, but for those who don't know, just suffice to say that he was taken unfairly, and he was taken much before his time. So we did lose Mr. Leon Fortner at the beginning of last month. He is survived by Miss Mary Fortner, his wife, Mr. Philip Fortner, his son, who both run Get Some Game now. Very wonderful people, awesome family of people, great store. Highly recommend coming out and checking it out. But with that loss, we've had about a month now. The community members, I know the wife and son, they have a lot to deal with on their plate, but it really hit a lot of the community members, including myself, my friends, everybody who plays at that store. And I felt it was appropriate to kind of say my piece and without making this too much of a, solemn, brooding affair, just talk about why that store is so important to me and the impact that Mr. Leon Fortner had on a lot of the Magic community. So my goal is to kind of be a little more uplifting about it and, talk about a lot of the positive. I didn't want to be super autobiographical with this, but I think it's pretty important to tell kind of my backstory and my association with that store in order to really truly express why it's so important to me. I ended up at that store like a lot of people. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina for work. It turned out the line of work that I went into was something that was definitely not suitable for me, and it took a really heavy toll on me mentally, physically, emotionally, just working at a job I didn't care for, being a new person in this city, not really knowing a lot of people. And I did what a lot of Magic players do. At the time I moved to Charlotte, I had been playing Magic for probably in ballpark of 3 or 4 years, maybe even less than that. And, I did what everybody does. I Google searched places to play Magic the Gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I found probably 7, 8, 9 stores at the time. Now, I had a lot of free time when I first moved to Charlotte. I didn't really have people to go hang out with. I didn't have other obligations outside of work. So once I left work at 5 o'clock each day, I could go out to one of the game stores and just kind of see what they were like. And that's what I did. I did my rounds to pretty much every game store in the area. When I first moved here, the majority of them aren't even here anymore. Some of the stores that we have here in Charlotte, like Mighty Meeple, weren't there when I first moved to Charlotte, but Be There Games, I think Dragon Fodder or Fodder Cannon, one of those. Play It Again, I believe was the name of a store. I went to pretty much every single store I could and just played an event or two there over the course of the first month living in Charlotte to get a feel for things. And I've got to say, Get Some Game clicked immediately. The very first time I went there, I went for a Magic Origins draft. I think it was actually the first or second draft of the format. It had just come out a pre-release before or something like that, or a week before. And I walked in to Get Some Game and was greeted by Miss Mary Fortner, and just it immediately clicked. The atmosphere was exactly what I was looking for in a game store. I met Miss Mary Fortner that night. She was very kind. She was the person ringing everybody up for entries into draft when, you still had to do everything by hand. There was no companion app or anything like that. And, she sat there while I was signing up for this draft and, chatted with me. A person who's never been in that store, wanted to know what I was doing there, how I came about it. And I just immediately felt invited. The people I played against that night, I still remember a couple of the faces, a couple of the regulars who still play there, 7, 8 years down the line. It felt very inviting, which was something that I hadn't gotten out of a lot of stores I'd played at that point. Now, I'd played at good stores. One that comes to mind is Atomic Empire in Durham, North Carolina. I love that store. It's a very friendly vibe, very open space. But I don't feel like I latched on to a lot of the people that were there. There were regulars, but nobody that I really considered like a close friend or anything like that. At Get Some Games, something felt different, and I felt like most of the people there that I interacted with who came back for F&Ms were friends, and, I could talk to these people when I strolled into the store and I saw a familiar face. I've been to stores where everybody's very cliquey, and most stores have their like competitive EDH group in the back, and their casual EDH players up here, and that group that comes in and only plays with themselves, right? I think every store has those cliques, but they mix and match sometimes. I've been to those stores where it's so cliquey that you walk in and you just don't feel like you're invited in. The store owner really only talks to the regulars, doesn't really interact with anybody new walking in, and that really turns me off from going back to that stores, and it's the complete opposite that I felt when I got to Get Some Game, which is kind of funny. If you've ever been to Get Some Game and you remember the very first time you went there, to their current location, it's kind of funny. They're on this strip of road. I'm sorry, Mary and Phil, if you're listening. Sorry, this isn't bashing you guys, but it's on this strip of road that's kind of like notorious for being not a great neighborhood. And it's this really drawn out strip of road that has kind of nothing going on. There's a bunch of churches that aren't really open throughout the weeks. There's some questionable people hanging around sometimes. Every now and then there will be a cop car just hanging out, checking out, seeing what's going on. And when you go to Get Some Game for the first time, you drive by and you're like, where is this card store? All I see is Reeves Eye Clinic on the left-hand side, all of these empty buildings. There's a hair salon, and there's this big building that looks like a 2-story mansion church. Oh, turns out that's the game store. I remember having that feeling the very first time I went to Get Some Game. I drove right by it thinking, I don't see anything that looks like a hobby shop or a game shop here. So I drove right by, and then I did a second lap, and I saw like an Avacyn poster in the window, and I was like, oh, that is the game store. Wow. It's a really big store. From what I understand, they used to be in a different location before I moved there, which I think was a lot smaller, but they have a really big location that just doesn't even stand out as a game store when you're driving by. If you're used to those kind of game stores that are on like strip malls and stuff like that, this one's a little bit different. So it's easy to pass up and just immediately kind of catches you off guard when you go in. But anyway, the first time I went there, obviously I met Mary. I had a really good interaction. It got me going back there. I eventually met Phil. Phil is the son of Mary and Leon. He's currently doing a lot for the store. He obviously lost his father, so he's going through a lot, and I understand that. But Phil just has this kind of aura where it feels like you're invited there and you're welcome there no matter what's going on with your life. I remember shortly after moving to Charlotte, I went to a Grand Prix in Atlanta. Atlanta's about 3.5, 4 hours away. You have to get a hotel, right? You're not driving there and back. And I didn't really know anybody, so I just kind of made a post, I think, in the Get Some Game group saying, hey, I'm going to Atlanta. If anybody, can ride share, or anybody has a hotel that I can split with, let me know. And Phil reached out, who I barely knew at the time. I drafted with him maybe once or twice. He reached out and he was like, hey, we've got this hotel with like 7 or 8 people. If you don't mind sharing a room with that many people, come join us. Give us $20-$30 and you can stay with us for the night. And I just thought that was super cool for him to reach out to basically a stranger. I guess I gave him the vibe that I'm someone I could trust. People tell me that's the case sometimes, but I thought that was super cool. I ended up staying with them. I met a lot of the people that I continued to know in Charlotte through that trip at a great time. Michael Spencer was there, Kyle was there, Byron was there, just a bunch of great people who I still consider friends in the area. And, I really thank Phil for reaching out and giving me that opportunity to kind of branch off and network with a lot of people from the store, and also giving me a place to stay so I didn't have to pay for a whole hotel by myself. Ended up doing decent in that tournament as well. It wasn't until later on down the line that I actually met Leon, though. And Leon is a big guy. He was the presence in the room while he was there. And from my perspective, I would never say that I was super, super close to Leon. I think we played a lot of Magic together. He would fill in F&M drafts when we were a person short. He would do these on-the-fly wacky drafts and stuff like that. He wanted people in his store, and he wanted them playing Magic. So he would fill in and get people excited in any way possible just so that they were sitting in his store and playing Magic. And sometimes when he wasn't participating in events, he would just be there kind of silently working on his own, doing his own stuff for the shop. He was almost enigmatic in that sort of way from my perspective, where at one moment he would just be sitting there completely silently, and second moment he would be jumping in, seeing what's going on with people playing games, or he would be playing himself. And the thing that really strikes me looking back at Leon is the way that he just interacted with other people playing. As long as people were playing games in his store, he treated you like an equal. He was just happy to see that people were bonding and playing and had a place to go where they could do that sort of thing. You know, there's this stereotype that nerds and geeks and people who play games used to be unpopular, and now it's this cool thing to do and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people still feel that way. They feel like they're a misfit or an outcast because they play Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or whatever. And having a game store to go to and be amongst similar-minded people who want to do the same thing and understand why you're interested in the thing you're interested without you having to explain that to them, that's a very special thing. The LGS is so important, and specifically Get Some Game was important to me because that was the location where I felt like I could most be myself without having to explain why I liked the things I liked. Speaking of Leon, some of my favorite things about him is that I'm sure he used to play Magic very competitively. He played a lot of games, but when I sat down and I played F&M Draft and I knew Leon was in the pod and we got matched up, I'm not trying to be snobby or anything, but I felt like if I lost a game to Leon, I did something wrong. Not that he's not a great player or anything like that, but I think he was more interested in just playing a game than winning a game sometimes. He would very often do this thing where he would fill in a spot, he would just completely crush somebody, like a new Magic player, and then he would concede so that they could go on to the next round and still win packs. Or he would play with a child who is new to the game, someone who just came into the store and said, hey, I'm interested in learning how to play a card game, but I don't really know how. He will sit down and be excited to teach that kid, and you could hear it in his voice when he was teaching a child how to play a game. It was very much like, let's get this kid excited about this game so that 10 years down the line, they want to open their own game store or they want to teach other people how to play the game. That was the kind of interactions that I saw with Leon and other people, even though I myself, aside from just kind of like being a respected, I think, a member of the community, I wasn't super close to Leon. Still, it was very exciting, very promising to see a store owner like that so engaged in making sure that their community members were happy. Especially new community members and especially young people. Like, just reaching out to those young people is so important. Get Some Game does a lot of stuff like that to reach out to youth, or at least try to reach out to, people who want to play with their families or people who want to get their kids invested in games and stuff like that. So that's just kind of the type of person that I perceived Leon to be. Even if he wasn't like the best player, Magic player in the world, he was just very excited to get people playing Magic. Now, that sort of thing is super important to people like me, not just myself, but everybody who is like me, who doesn't consider themselves, I wouldn't consider myself socially awkward necessarily, but very introverted. I'm the type of person who wants to be an extrovert, but has an introverted personality, and therefore has a lot of trouble kind of reaching out and branching off into new things. And I knew when I moved to Charlotte that I was a Magic player through and through. It hit me super hard. Like, I'm going to be a Magic player until Magic dies down in 6 years when the next unset comes out. Sick dig there. But anyway, it's super important to have open spaces like that where people who feel like they don't fit in with other crowds have a place to fit in. I mean, if you ask the people that I know in Charlotte, I have quite a few people that I consider friends, a lot that I consider close friends, and I think I met probably 99% of them through Get Some Game, through Magic the Gathering, or through somebody that I met in one of those avenues, right? With the exception of my girlfriend, I believe every single person that I regularly talk to and am friends with, I met because of Magic the Gathering. And the best place to meet those sort of peoples is the LGS, the local game store, whether that's Get Some Game or whatever LGS you like, the one that you go to. It's so important to support them. It's so important to be part of that community, and it's very important to me because I had a really tough time when I moved to Charlotte, and Get Some Game provided that kind of home away from home quality. And I cannot thank the owners of the store. I can't thank Phil and Mary and Leon enough for that. And obviously, I don't get to say this to Leon's face, but I wanted to do this for an episode because I'll never get an opportunity to say it otherwise. I've had the time to process the loss of Leon and its impact on the community. And I think it's just important if you're going to have a platform like this to, take a moment to say thank you to the people who have given you those opportunities and given you those communities and things like that. So I'm not going to drag this on. I did just want to basically make this episode a thank you to those people. And I guess basically like a goodbye to Leon. To anybody who's listening in the community who I've met, whether you're a Charlotte player or someone that I met down the line or someone I meet in the future who, finds this video because we played EDH and I recommended you listen to it or something. Thank you for being a part of my life. It is super important to me to have these sorts of connections. It's what I really thrive on. It's kind of how I became the person that I consider myself to be now, is through Magic the Gathering, which sounds really dorky to people who don't play the game and stuff like that, people who aren't as invested in it as I am. But no, thank you to everybody out there. Thank you to the people who make the community what it is. The positive people, at least. The toxic people, I'm not thanking you. You know who you are. But yeah, thank you, Leon. Thank you so much for putting together this community and building it up to what it is so that I could join it and feel comfortable being who I am within this community. I'm not going to drag it on, but one final thanks to everybody. Get Some Game. If you are in Charlotte, North Carolina, and you're not like a regular player, I recommend that as the store that you visit. Not to say that other stores don't have things to offer, but Get Some Game really is like the Olive Garden of local game stores. When you're there, you're family, It doesn't have as many breadsticks and you can't buy soup, but I don't know. I bet if you asked Mary, she might be able to hook you up with some soup. So, yeah, it's awesome. Check it out. Leon, you are sorely missed by myself and a lot of other people. I do want to close this out with a word from my girlfriend. Morgan met Leon and Mary and Phil a little over a year ago because I kind of dragged her to, the local game stores to meet all these people when we first got together. She met them and they kind of welcomed her with open arms. And I think she wanted to take a moment to say goodbye as well. So I'm going to close out the episode, and then I will just roll this straight into whatever Miss Morgan has to say. And just know that if you're out there looking for a community and you're a Magic player, there are places for you to go. Come hang out at Get Some Game in Charlotte, North Carolina. Come play some Commander with me. Come draft with me Friday night. I'd be very happy to meet new people. I'm always happy to meet new people at the game store. So goodbye, Leon. Thanks for everything. And we'll go ahead and close this one out. This has been Scattered Thoughts, episode number 5. We'll be back to normal Magic content. I've got a couple episodes planned, but I've been putting this one off because I've just been, mincing my words and trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to say. So it was important for me to get this out before doing any more actual Magic related content and stuff like that. So that's going to go ahead and do for this episode. Feel free to subscribe to this channel for more Scattered Thoughts episodes. If you have any recommendations for the type of stuff you want to hear on this channel, feel free to let me know in the comments. Check out the rest of the Jank Diver Gaming channel for gameplay videos and cube draft videos and things of that nature, which we throw up here and there. But thanks for joining me. My name's Timothy with Scattered Thoughts, and I'll catch you all next time. And here's a word from Miss Morgan Hudson.
Hi, as Tim said, my name is Morgan Hudson. When I think of Leon, I think of the first time that I ever went to Get Some Game. I didn't go to Get Some Game because I wanted to play games or I was trying to get into something. I actually went during the pandemic for Phil's birthday party. And after that, Tim and I started dating, and then I started going, and I didn't really learn how to play at first. I just kind of sat with my phone and watched other players, watched everyone interact, and I saw how Leon would interact with everyone. How courteous and polite and just an overall fantastic human being at this game store. He didn't care if you were brand new, if you've been there for years. He treated you with respect. And that's something that I really enjoyed. I got to know Leon, and I got to know Mary and Phil a little bit more. I started showing up. I did have interest in Magic, but I was kind of scared because I didn't want to be a baby player, I guess. I didn't want to be that person who played with the big boys and, got my butt beat every single time. But one night I went and they needed another person for draft. I know what draft is because I live with Tim and he talks about it all the time. And Leon looked at me and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm watching a YouTube video about," he was like, yeah, I don't care about that. You're going to draft for the store tonight. And I just kind of look at him wide-eyed like, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, come on, I'll teach you how to do it." So I drafted a deck for the first time. I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. Leon walked me through the entire thing. Then I was like, okay, I made a deck. Awesome. I'm not going to play. Well, joke's on me. I did play. And I did pretty good. I've learned a couple of things from Tim and watching them play a lot. And so I knew how to do the most part. And I did a lot of things on Arena. But I did pretty good. And at the end of the night, I kind of got a "she's dangerous" kind of thing from Leon. Like, watch out, she's dangerous. So that always made me feel good as a new player and someone who wanted to learn more about the game but was kind of scared to advocate for myself and what I needed as a player. He was there to help me along the way. I think one of the things that I'm most thankful for about Leon is that our last conversation was a funny one. If anyone ever walked in to get some game, they would know that Leon always had a gallon of tea with him. It was Milo's or Milo's. Not really sure how to pronounce the gallon of tea, but it's a brand. And he hid it behind a water fountain at Get Some Game. And we were leaving one night. It was really late, and I looked at him and I said, "Hey, Leon, don't forget your tea." And he kind of looked at me and he was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh, your tea. You hid it by the water fountain. Just don't forget it before you leave." And he looks at me and he goes, "Girl, that's last week's tea." So now every time that I see Milo's, I think of Leon and I think of last week's tea. And I haven't drafted another game yet, but I think that I really want to start getting into it, especially since I'm going to have some free time on my hands because, Tim and I are having a baby, so might as well get knee deep into something while I have the time, right? Anyway, I'm really thankful for Leon. I'm thankful for Get Some Game. I'm thankful for their acceptance of everyone and how they made me feel as a newcomer to Charlotte and as a newcomer to Magic the Gathering and just the card game world in general. So thank you so much, Leon. You are missed, you are loved, and you are appreciated.